Hello everyone, I'm Michael from Heavyweight Boxing, and today I thought I'd bring you a new series which I'd like to call What's Next For. In this series, I'll be looking at certain fighters and talking about what I think they should do next in their career. It doesn't matter if the fighter has lost or won in their previous fight, but I'd like to talk about what opponents I'd like to next see them fight. And so on. As you can see, the first person I've chosen for this series is the big man Pricey. Price recently got a fantastic win over Dave Allen, where he made Dave Allen retire in the 10th round of the 12-round fight. We know how durable Dave Allen is, so for David Price to do that, he really must have given him a proper beating. David Price looked amazing in that fight, I must say. It was a real boxing masterclass, showed great hand speed, was putting together some lovely combinations, just kept Dave Allen on the outside for the whole fight, peppering him with that jab. And I think because Dave Allen was struggling to counterpunch David Price, it gave Pricey that little bit more confidence. And I think that's where we start to see the hand speed, the combinations coming together, some beautiful uppercuts. I was also even impressed with his work on the inside as well, because even once David Allen got on the inside, Price was hitting him with some beautiful uppercuts, and even on the outside, again, his classic 1-2s, and so on. So yeah, great performance from David Price in that fight. Really showed us that there are levels to this game, as we always like to say in boxing. And again, I'm really happy for him. You know, he's going into this fight the underdog. He's had a lot of stick throughout all his career, but he really showed some glimpses of that talent we talked about when Price was a lot earlier in his career. But anyway, so on to what's next for Price. Now, I've got a few names down here for fighters I'd like to see him in with, and I'll talk a little bit about each fighter and what I think might happen with those fights, and overall the fighter I'd probably most like to see him fight next. So the first name I've got on my list is Derek Del Boy Chisora, or War Chisora as we now call him. I think this would be a great fight, as with all the opponents on here, he's a British fighter, Chisora, and I would like to see David Price in another domestic clash. I think there's so many good British heavyweights out right now that it's almost a waste to see David Price go abroad and fight someone else from another country. I want to see him fight English fighters with all the amazing heavyweights there are right now, or British fighters either. So Chisora, I think, would be a great fight. I think the styles mix quite nicely. We've got David Price, who's going to want to keep the fight rangy and fight on the outside with his 1-2, his effective 1-2 style of fighting. And then we've got Del Boy, who he's got this new raw style of boxing, which I just think is amazing to watch, of this kind of search and destroy, where he's literally built like a boulder now. It's got a crazy stamina, and he's just going to hunt you down, throwing absolute bombs. You don't see him throw a jab. He's just going to hunt you down, get in front of you. You can hit him with whatever you want. He'll take two to give one, and he's got just insane punching power. You know, we saw it in the Spilka fight. That knockout is brutal, and it only took him 2 rounds. You know, Wilder got a really brutal knockout against Spilka, but it took him 7 rounds and was down on the cards. So yeah, I think those two fighters I'd like to see fight, not only because of the styles, because I think they will gel quite well. We'll see who gets the upper hand. Price, can he keep on the outside? Can Chisora get on the inside? But also, you know, they're both towards the end of their careers and have had a sudden revival of their careers. You know, Chisora after the Hay fight, you know, fights like that, you know, people kind of writ him off, but he's real after that second White fight. It really showed that he's a proper contender. And either of these fighters, if they were to beat one another, would be catapulted into the real mix, you know, real mix in potential, you know, down the line, who knows, AJ, whatever. So, yeah, Chisora is definitely a fight I'd like to see. Although I'd probably lean to Chisora in regards to winning that fight. I think he'd just be too much for Price with that power, and I think he would have ways of being able to hit Price that Dave Allen struggled with. Although again, I think that would be a real competitive fight. The next fight I've got down here is Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury, I really want to see him fight some of the British fighters and really gauge what kind of level Hughie Fury's at. I think he's quite similar to Price. He's about 6'6", very tall man. They're both quite quick on their feet, both quite quick hand speed. Although I think that fight is very unlikely to happen at this stage for his next fight, because I think Hughie Fury is recently signed with Matchroom, and I think there's talks of him fighting Povetkin, which I think would be an interesting fight. So I think we can take that one off the cards. Also, some people have asked about a Povetkin rematch. Again, obviously, I've just spoke about Hughie Fury, so it looks like that'd be unlikely. And even if it was likely, it was a competitive first fight. But would I want to see the rematch? Probably not. I think we'd probably have a similar outcome as the first. Although it was an entertaining fight, I'd go with Povetkin knocking him out. Now on to another two fighters who are linked with, what's his name? Fish Eyes. I've forgotten his name now. But BT Sport. Frank Warren, that's it. Is Dubois and Joe Joyce. Fighting David Price. I think either of those fights would be a great fight for Joe Joyce. I think, great fight for David Price, sorry. I think Joe Joyce and David Price, that is a good fight. That is a good fight. I'd also like to see David Price versus Dubois, just to gauge what kind of level Dubois is at, because if he was to beat David Price, which I think he would definitely have a shot in doing, that would really show what level Dubois is at. But yeah, Joe Joyce, I think that's a good fight. Both can hit. Joyce is a durable fighter, so probably go the distance. David Price has got the hand speed. Joe Joyce is a bit slower. So they've both got different attributes that they bring to the table. So I think that would be a really interesting one. And the winner of that would be in a very nice position. So with my overall fighter I'd like to see David Price fight, that is a difficult one now, because I've put some good names on there, but I'd think I'd either go for Chisora or Joe Joyce. I think Dubois, I don't want to see Dubois in with David Price just yet, because I think he can beat David Price, but it's just a bit of a step up just yet. Although he could, I don't know. I'd probably go with Joe Joyce. I'd like to see David Price versus Joe Joyce in a domestic clash at the O2 or something like that. It's probably not big enough to take its own event or pay-per-view, but on an undercard, that would be very fucking tasty. David Price versus Joe Joyce. Or Chisora. But I think Chisora again, that's just reminded me, I think Chisora again is linked with the Parker fight. And I think that is pretty much sealed. And there's no way Chisora is turning down a money fight like Parker for David Price. So I think that really does leave me with the Juggernaut versus Pricey. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. Please comment below who you'd like to see David Price fight next. And thanks for listening. Goodbye.